Take a deep breath with me right now. Go on, breathe in. And let it out. Isn't it just remarkable? Welcome to this Explainer Masterclass. Today, we're embarking on a truly profound journey. We're going to bridge the fascinating physiological science of the human respiratory system with the ancient, time-tested yogic wisdom of pranayama. Whether you're a science enthusiast, a dedicated yoga practitioner, or honestly just someone looking to optimize your everyday health, understanding exactly how you breathe is the ultimate key to unlocking both physical vitality and mental clarity. Let's dive in.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering the philosophy of breath, the anatomy of the respiratory system, the mechanics of breathing, the mind-body-breath connection, pranayama and practice, and finally, mastering your daily breath.
Starting right off with Section 1, the philosophy of breath.
I absolutely love this thought on screen. The breath is the thing closest to us. It is tangible, believable, understandable, and controllable. Think about it. We experience this gentle inhalation and exhalation every single day. It sustains us, it calms us, and it literally reflects our thoughts. Yet, because it runs on autopilot in the background, it's incredibly easy to just ignore. Bringing conscious awareness back to this automatic process is really your first step toward mastery.
Now you might be wondering, how do different traditions look at this? Well, there's a brilliant distinction between the modern scientific perspective and traditional yogic wisdom. Science looks at physical air, right? Elements like oxygen and nitrogen that fuel cellular respiration to create ATP energy for our cells. But yogic wisdom looks a bit deeper, focusing on something called prana. Prana is the vital life energy that flows through the body, intimately influencing our consciousness and mental states. In a true masterclass of breathing, we don't actually have to choose between these views. We embrace both. The physical air simply carries the prana.
Moving on to Section 2, anatomy of the respiratory system.
Let's trace the physical journey of a single inhalation. When you breathe in, air enters the nasal cavity, where it gets warmed, humidified, and filtered by mucus and these microscopic hairs. From there, it travels down through the pharynx, past the larynx, which is your voice box, and down into the trachea. The trachea is this fascinating tube held open by rigid cartilage rings. From there, it branches out into the primary bronchi, one for each lung. And then, it divides into smaller and smaller bronchioles. If you visualize it, it literally looks exactly like a magnificent upside-down tree growing right inside your chest.
At the very ends of those tiny bronchial branches, we find the alveoli. These resemble microscopic bunches of grapes. They have incredibly thin walls and are wrapped tightly in blood capillaries. This is where the magic of gas exchange actually occurs. What's absolutely vital here is a substance called surfactant. Surfactant coats the inside of these tiny sacs, lowering the surface tension of water so the alveoli don't just collapse in on themselves. In fact, premature babies often lack this surfactant, which can cause severe respiratory distress. But thanks to modern medicine, artificial surfactants now save countless tiny lives by allowing those alveoli to inflate properly. It's a real game changer.
Surrounding this intricate tree are the lungs themselves, perfectly protected by a rib cage. Interestingly, your right lung has 3 lobes, but your left lung only has 2. Why? Well, it has a small indentation called the cardiac notch to make room for your heart. Now, the lungs are actually passive. They don't move on their own. They're encased in a double membrane called the pleura, separated by a thin layer of serous fluid. Think of 2 panes of glass with a drop of water between them. They glide perfectly against each other, but are very, very hard to pull apart. This clever design allows the lungs to expand effortlessly as the chest cavity moves. So, if the lungs are passive, what is actually moving the chest cavity? Enter the diaphragm. This is a dome-shaped sheet of muscle sitting right under the lungs, separating the chest from the abdomen. While the upper chest muscles and the muscles between your ribs play a supporting role, the diaphragm acts as the primary bellows. When it contracts, it flattens downward, creating negative pressure that literally pulls air into the lungs. And when it relaxes, it domes right back up, pushing the air out.
That brings us to Section 3, the mechanics of breathing.
15. In normal, quiet breathing, the average person completes about 15 of these respiratory cycles every single minute. That is a massive amount of physical movement happening right now inside of you, largely without you ever having to consciously think about it.
And what exactly are we pulling in with those 15 breaths? Well, the air around us isn't pure oxygen. Inhaled air is actually about 79% nitrogen, which surprisingly plays no active part in our respiration at all. It's just along for the ride. There's only about 20% oxygen, with a tiny, tiny fraction of carbon dioxide. Our body efficiently extracts the oxygen it needs to make cellular energy and then dumps the metabolic waste, which is carbon dioxide, back into the outgoing breath.
So the crucial point here is what happens right between the inhale and the exhale. The magic happens in the pause. Physically, this is the millisecond where gas diffusion reaches perfect equilibrium between the lungs and the blood. Spiritually, in yogic terms, this moment of retention is the most important part of pranayama. It is the absolute gateway to deep concentration and profound stillness.
But how does the body actually know when to take that next breath? Well, it all comes down to chemistry. Your nervous system is constantly monitoring your blood pH. When carbon dioxide builds up from cellular activity, it creates hydrogen ions, which makes your blood slightly more acidic. Your brain instantly detects this rising acidity and fires signals to your diaphragm to breathe deeper and faster to blow off that CO2. It's a brilliant feedback loop. And to protect you, stretch receptors in your lungs trigger something called the Herring-Brewer reflex, which safely stops your inhalation before your lungs overinflate.
Section 4. The Mind-Body-Breath Connection.
Notice how perfectly modern science maps onto ancient yogic knowledge here in this table. Inhalation stimulates the sympathetic nervous system. It's energizing and corresponds beautifully to the Pingala Nadi. Exhalation triggers the parasympathetic nervous system. It's calming, introverting, and maps directly to the Adha Nadi. And that magical pause we just talked about? It brings absolute stillness, allowing a witness attitude to manifest. That is a direct stimulation of the Sushumna Nadi, the central channel of energy. They are quite literally describing the exact same human experience, just from two different angles.
Unfortunately, modern life has triggered a bit of an epidemic of improper, shallow breathing. When we stress breathe using only our upper chest, we keep that sympathetic nervous system constantly engaged. This creates chronic anxiety, reduces our vitality, and fills the lungs with useless dead space. Proper diaphragmatic breathing, on the other hand, pulls air deep into the lower lungs. As the diaphragm drops, it literally massages your digestive organs. It optimizes your CO2 elimination and signals to the brain that you are safe, inducing a deep, restorative relaxation.
This leads us right to a physiological secret of pranayama. By optimizing our breathing to eliminate waste gases efficiently, we literally alter our brain chemistry. Lowering carbon dioxide levels efficiently takes away that acidic urgency in the blood. Because of that, your respiratory rate naturally slows down. This has a profound quietening effect, calming a racing mind and creating the essential mental state required for deep focus and control of your thought patterns.
Let's look at Section 5, Pranayama in Practice.
When you practice pranayama, you aren't just relaxing in the moment, you are fundamentally upgrading your physiology. A dedicated practice increases your vital lung capacity, tapping into this vast reserve volume that most people never even use. Because blood distribution in the lungs is gravity-dependent, there is actually far more blood in the lower parts of your lungs. By consciously breathing deeply, you direct oxygen right to where the blood is waiting for it. Over time, this regulates circulatory functions, smooths out arrhythmic heartbeats, and induces a wonderful baseline of deep relaxation throughout your entire body-mind complex.
So how do we actually practice this? Well, first, we've got to correct the mistake of upper chest heaving. Try placing your hand on your stomach and practice natural diaphragmatic breathing. Just let your belly rise outward on the inhale and fall inward on the exhale. Simple as that. Once you master that, you can practice full yogic breathing, intentionally directing the air into those deepest, gravity-rich lung bases. Advanced practices like Nadi Shodhana, or alternate nostril breathing, extend the breath cycle from a normal 2 seconds all the way up to 7 or 8 seconds. By doing this, you can almost double your output of carbon dioxide compared to a normal breath, vastly improving your internal chemical balance.
And finally, Section 6, Mastering Your Daily Breath.
Always remember this. While breathing normally runs entirely on autopilot, we possess a built-in manual override switch. Because our respiratory muscles are connected to somatic motor neurons, we can consciously take the wheel at any given moment. You absolutely do not have to be a victim of a racing, stressed-out mind. By willfully changing the rhythm, the depth, and the focus of your breath, you can literally induce any chosen state of mind on demand. We've explored the cellular anatomy, the chemistry of the blood, and the ancient maps of vital prana. Knowing all of this now, knowing that every single inhalation energizes your physical vessel and every single exhalation profoundly calms your consciousness, how will you use your next breath? I invite you, right now, to take a slow, deep, perfectly structured diaphragmatic breath. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer journey through the breath of life. Keep practicing and stay focused.